Welcome to another edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. During this program, we will highlight the agenda items presented to the Lakeville City Council at their October 5th, 2015 meeting. First highlighted item on the agenda is item number 5B, Public Works Department Monthly Report. And to provide the information on this agenda item is Public Works Director Chris Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. This is the September 2015 monthly report for the Public Works Department. And we will jump right into our monthly project updates, the first of which is our water treatment facility improvements. As you can see by the photos there, our new section of reservoir is complete. It's 1 million gallons that we added on. It did recently pass our leak test, which is a good thing. And you can see by the photos here, the contractor is backfilling around the reservoir, installing drain tile. And actually this week we'll be draining our reservoirs and actually demolishing the wall that's between the existing reservoir and this new one so that the two can be interconnected. We couldn't do that earlier in the year because of water use, and we couldn't take the existing reservoir out of service to do that, but now we're comfortable where we're at in the year and water usage to do that. So that work is going to occur this week. Also starting this month, we'll be completing the rest of the improvements at the water treatment facility, including improvements in our high service pump area, installation of additional piping that's necessary to increase the capacity, as well as upgrades to some of our chemical feed systems. The next update is on our 2015 street reconstruction project. Restoration work is underway in all areas of our street recon project. All of the utility work has been completed for the year, so all of the storm sewer, water main, drain tile, all of that stuff has been completed. The remaining curb and gutter, as you can see by some of these photos, this is relatively new curb and gutter there, was completed by mid-September. And some of the final grading work, which you see in these photos, occurred last week, and we'll be doing all the remaining paving in the areas in the upcoming weeks. Of course, the rain slowed us down a little bit for a couple of weeks there. Our Holyoke Avenue water tower, you can't miss it if you drive by. Pores of our shaft, which is the photo on the left, continue to progress, as well as what you see on the right-hand side are the dome panels that are being poured at the same time that are being stacked up. In all, there will be 12 shaft pours, so as you see those forms on the photo, 12 different times they'll make the pours and then move the forms up, and then there'll be 16 total dome panels that will be poured as well. What the dome is after the shaft is constructed, the dome panels are placed on the top of that, and that's what the actual bowl of the water tower, the steel bowl, rests on, or is on those dome panels. Our well 20 construction, drilling and development of the well are complete, so that small little object in the middle of your photo is the actual well casing. That goes down 550 feet below the ground there. Over 175 tons of sand was removed from the well as it was developed. You can see some of the remnants of the sand in the background. That white colored material is the sand out of the formation over 500 feet in the ground. The drilling rig and other equipment was removed from the site at Cherry View Park last week, and the contractor's working on the remaining cleanup and site restoration prior to the installation of the actual well itself and the cabinet and the panel and all those things that go with it. What is actually going on this week, if you go by, is a pump test. The well, we need to test pump the well for a 30-hour period, and that's beginning this week, and we'll make sure that the well can satisfy our needs. The design of the well, our goal is for it to be able to produce 1,200 gallons per minute, so that's what we'll be testing it against. Kensington Boulevard, paving was completed on Kensington Boulevard, the wear course paving that is, last week, September 30th, and new street lights have also been installed along Kensington. Now, the remaining work includes some minor punch list items and restoration in some of the boulevards that is yet to be completed, but otherwise that's progressing along as well. Our miscellaneous roadway repair project, that of course included the parking lots here at City Hall, at the Heritage Center, at Fire Station number 1 and Fire Station number 2. And anyone that visited the City Hall, of course, you know that was delayed a little bit, especially our north parking lot by the rain that had occurred. But work continued. This is photos from last week of trying to dry up the materials so that we could pave. We were able to get the remaining base paving done last week, and then over the weekend we did pave the wear course on the parking lot and got the parking lot striped, as you would have noticed coming in tonight. Also, the parking lot at Fire Station number 2 was completed in late September as well, and the remaining lots across the street, as you know, were completed a few weeks ago as well. I didn't mention, before I go on to Cathodic Protection, I didn't mention our Hamburg Avenue project. That continues to progress as well. Hamburg Avenue, we have replaced most of the culverts along Hamburg Avenue, and that project exists from County Road 50 south to our southern city limits through our industrial park and Air Lake, and all of the culverts have been replaced. We've started milling and resurfacing the road. And we actually have some water quality improvements that will begin here very shortly in the ditch sections. That's the funding is provided by a number of organizations. So just wanted to let the council know I'll have an update on that in our next monthly report. Now, Cathodic Protection. This ties back into Kensington Boulevard, and it's also something we've been talking quite a bit about as it relates to future street reconstruction projects. Cathodic Protection was actually installed along the length of Kensington Boulevard at over, I believe it was 76 sites in all. With Cathodic Protection, sacrificial anodes are installed along the length of the water main at different intervals, and these anodes help protect the actual main as the anodes and the sacrificial metal that is contained in there draw the current away from the ductile iron pipe, and that is what actually corrodes, is the sacrificial anode versus the pipe. Manufacturers of this technology in other communities have seen this last at a minimum of 20 years, and in many cases it's lasting well over 30 years, protecting some of the iron pipe that exists across the country. Now, I just also want to remind everyone that while this cathodic protection does not guarantee the complete absence of water main breaks, as I've already mentioned, research has shown that the installation of these cathodic protection sacrificial anodes will significantly reduce the number of breaks over time and extend the life of our infrastructure that currently exists. Eastlake Fish Survey, I wanted to highlight something our environmental resources folks have been working on. The fish population in Eastlake has rebounded dramatically after a severe winter kill in 2012. Based on the latest fish survey from this year, the number of black crappies is off the charts. Bullheads, carp numbers are also extremely high. However, these bottom-feeding fish can be considered contributors to the poor water quality that exists in Eastlake. And also because Eastlake is susceptible, to winter kills, we will be monitoring the dissolved oxygen over the course of this winter and future winters. And our assumption, as well as the folks performing the fish survey, is that Mother Nature will very likely help rebalance the fish population over the next year or two in Eastlake after that winter kill in 2012. Lastly, I wanted to hit on a valve repair that our utilities division completed recently. Our staff was out completing our annual hydrant flushing program, and this happened near Schneiderman's Furniture and Goodwill off of Kenrick 175th area. As they were doing their flushing, water started bubbling out of a valve. We brought in equipment, as you could see, to clean the area and excavate around the valve. What actually occurred, and this is in our street recon area for 2016, that corrosion had occurred and actually corroded almost all of the bolts that hold the valve on, and I've talked about this in the past. You can see our staff in the right-hand photo working on the valve. That's the top of the valve that actually came apart. Enough so that it knocked the cover off the valve and it started bubbling up out of the valve, and this is something that we see quite common when we're flushing hydrants or in areas where we know there's some severe corrosion. Needless to say, the bolts were replaced and the water main was put back into service. The entire process took only about 2 hours to actually get the water back on, which is good as we have a number of businesses in the area. And that does conclude the September 2015 monthly report.
Next highlighted item on the agenda is item number 7, public hearing on the application of Joy's Thai Cuisine for a wine and on sale 3.2% malt liquor license. And to provide the background information on this agenda item is Chief of Police Jeff Long.
As you mentioned, the owner of Joy's Thai Cuisine has applied for an on-sale wine and a 3.2 malt liquor license for a business located on 160th Street West. A thorough background check was completed on the applicant and her references were contacted. The background investigation revealed no concerns. The applicant indicated alcohol would only be served on the interior of the building. Thus, if it's approved, it will only be for the interior portion of the restaurant. The applicant has met all state and city requirements for the license requested, and the police department has no reservations for the approval of this license.
Item number 7 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 8, public hearing on the application of Northern Tier Retail for an off-sale 3.2% malt liquor license at Super America, located at 18450 Orchard Trail. And once again, to provide the background information on this agenda item is Chief of Police Jeff Long.
Good evening again, Mayor and members of the council. As you've just heard, Northern Tier Retail has applied for an off-sale 3.2 malt liquor license for their new Super America location on Orchard Trail. They currently have 4 other stores in Lakeville. All of them have a 3.2 malt liquor license. At the time of this application, the store currently under construction is estimated an opening of October 26th. And the applicant has met all state and city requirements for the license required, and the police department has no reservations for the approval of this license.
Item number 8 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 9, public hearing on the certification of delinquent utilities and assessment of delinquent street light charges. And to give the information regarding this agenda item is City Administrator Justin Miller.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Finance Director Erickson is home ill tonight, so she asked that I fill in for you, so we'll see how this goes. Staff tonight is asking you to hold a public hearing and approve a resolution certifying unpaid water, sanitary sewer, storm sewer, and street light charges to the county auditor. Every year we do this and we review what accounts are past due and delinquent. Tonight you are being asked to certify 753 accounts for a total of just over $318,000. This list could change between now and 30 days from now when people do have the opportunity to pay this without interest, and they've received notice about that and this public hearing tonight. So what staff is asking for tonight is for you to hold a public hearing and then approve the attached resolution.
Item number 9 was approved by the Lakeville City Council. Next highlighted item on the agenda was item number 10 through 13, and these items dealt with the purchase of property for the upcoming County Road 50 project. And to provide the background information on all these agenda items is Community and Economic Development Director Dave Olson.
As the mayor just indicated, we have brought forth 4 separate purchase agreements for 4 separate properties on the County Road 50 project. I should point out, and it wasn't included in the cover memo, but the firm that the council approved hiring earlier this year, Wilson Development Services, and Dan Wilson, has been the lead negotiator representative for the city on these transactions. While he is has a real estate license, he's not acting as a broker, but rather a consultant to the city, working for the city on an hourly basis. And I just wanted to point that out, that and we're bringing forward the agreements that, and obviously he's stayed in touch and communication with city staff during that process, but he was the city's representative on these negotiations for acquisitions. The first one that we're presenting is and by far the largest one, and it is the Newhall-Wetchka property that actually consists of 2 parcels and almost 3 acres, but it's the commercial parcel on which the Farm Show magazine as well as the Kindernook preschool are located. The address is 20088 Kenwood Trail. It was identified earlier this year as a total take or a complete acquisition for the County Road 50 project. Both buildings are occupied by two separate businesses, as I just alluded to, and the appraised value of the property came in earlier this year at $960,000. Obviously, a good portion of that, and the appraisal reflected the fact that there's 3 acres of land here, and quite honestly, most of the value, if not all the value, is assigned to the land as opposed to the buildings on this property. So that's what the appraisal came in at. Through discussions with Mr. Newhall and his wife, Mary Wetchka, they were agreeable to acquisition of at the appraised value. The other issue, and you're going to see this on several of these applications, and we felt it was important to be flexible with these property owners because they were voluntarily entering into these negotiations. We weren't at a point ready where we would have initiated eminent domain or condemnation on any of these properties. That potentially could happen in the future when the county takes over any remaining acquisitions that are left when next year sometime when the project is moving ahead. But we are trying to secure as many early acquisitions along here as we can. Council earlier this year approved the Johnson acquisition of a single-family home right there. So you can tell now with the 2 Newhall-Wetchka properties, we have a fairly large contiguous piece of property, a portion of which will be needed for the road improvements, obviously, and the portion of the undeveloped Newhall-Wetchka property will also be looked at in terms of if there's additional stormwater treatment that's needed for the larger road improvements. That's part of our joint powers agreement with Dakota County. But we still staff thinks that there's going to be an opportunity for redevelopment of these parcels once the road and stormwater and everything have been designed. So the rent back agreement with this property owner, and it provides for Mr. Newhall owns the business, the Farm Show Magazine business, but he has under separate ownership the real estate, and then the Kindernook is a tenant to him. But both of those businesses will be allowed to continue to operate at their current location up until June 30th of next year at no cost. And in addition to the extent that both businesses, or if one or either of the businesses choose to relocate, they will be eligible for relocation, moving expenses, and those types of things too. So this was a important property, and we appreciate the fact that Mr. Newhall, and we'll talk about his other property here in a second, but was very reasonable in the discussions, and as a result, staff's recommending approval of this purchase agreement and rent back agreement for this property at the appraised value of $960,000. And I should also mention that all of these acquisitions are scheduled to go to the county board for their approval, consideration and approval on October 20th. The next one is at 20116 Kenwood Trail, and it is the single-family home that is in this kind of irregular shaped lot, also owned by Newhall-Wetchka, and it is a single-family home that has, for a number of years, been owned by the property owner and operated as a rental single-family home. The home sits on approximately 13,000 square foot lot. In this case, the city's appraisal a number of months ago, and this is probably one of the first properties we had appraised out here, pretty early this year. I think the property was vacated in December or January, and so we had it appraised shortly after, and we had just started the discussions with all the property owners out here, and the appraisal came in at $142,000, excuse me. The agreement that we've signed with the owners was negotiated at the level of $155,200, and the basis for that negotiation was a recent comparable that was identified and confirmed by Wilson Development Services, as well as the fact that the county, for property tax purposes, has it valued at $160,000. That's not always the basis for our negotiation, and it's not the basis in this case, obviously, for the independent appraisal that was done, but it is an argument that the property owner can bring forward that he's been paying property taxes at a higher value. The other aspect about this, and so we think, and it's well within what we've identified as a 10% negotiating kind of window from the appraisal. This is another one where the owner agreed, and you'll see this in one other one as we bring forward here another commercial property. Mr. Newhall and Mrs. Wetchka agreed during our negotiations not to release the property, and they could have, and they had inquiries, and they chose not to based on our ongoing discussions. And so the purchase agreement for this doesn't include a rent-back agreement because nobody's living there, hasn't lived there for most of this year, but a back rent payment amount of $7,120 to reflect the rent that they were previously getting for that property, but chose somewhat at our request not to re-rent. And I will point out that the city and the county realized a significant savings on this total acquisition by not having that being rented out and having, because if it was, we'd be required to relocate the tenant. So the purchase price recommended on this one's $155,200 plus an additional $7,120 for the back rent since going back to when we began discussions with Mr. Newhall at the beginning of the year. And I should mention, I didn't mention on the first one, but our goal is to close on all of these by the end of October. This is the third one highlighted on this map, and it's actually around the corner from County Road 50 to Eastlake, and it is known as the Emond Medical Office Building. It's the address of which is 20157 Eastlake. And as council is aware, and we've discussed at several work sessions, while this property is not on the adjacent to and along the county road, it is in the strategic location by which the backage road concept would be able to be constructed. We would need to come through this property to loop and construct a backage road behind these businesses. So it was identified very early on as a total acquisition. We've been meeting with the property owners since early this year. Actually, I think it was December of last year when we first met with Dr. Eamon and his wife. The building there that they have is again a vacant 4,048 square foot medical office building. This is similar to the one we just talked about in that the last tenant there moved out, I think, in January, by the end of January of this year. And in our discussions with Dr. Eamon and his wife, we indicated that it would be a preference to not lease it out until we could, and while we were trying to reach an agreement with them on the purchase. The appraisal of this property came in at $385,000. All of these properties have the right, and Dr. Eamon was the only one that chose to exercise his right to have their own appraisal done. And so he retained his own commercial appraiser, and they came back with a value of $440,000. As a result of that appraisal, as well as identifying a comparable small medical office building that was currently on the market in Eagan, Mr. Wilson with Wilson Development Services, again, upon consultation with the city, reached a negotiated purchase price of $420,000, approximately halfway between our appraisal and the owner's appraisal. As I indicated, the owner did not rent the property out at our request, and so this one, obviously being a commercial property as opposed to a residential property, had a significantly higher monthly rental amount. So the back rent payment on this property equals $28,700. Again, considerably, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of half of what a commercial relocation would run the city if the property had been rented to another commercial office tenant, and we would have had to relocate. And then they're also entitled under state statute to be reimbursed for the cost of their appraisal. I think the maximum under statute allows $5,000. In their case, their appraisal cost was $3,500. So it's staff's recommendation to recommend approval of the purchase agreement for the purchase price of $420,000 with the back rent payment going back to February 1st of this year of $28,700, and as well as reimbursement of their appraisal cost. This is the fourth and final, and it is back to a residential property again, and in this case, and it is, of the ones we brought forward tonight anyway, the only, and it's the second one after the Carney Johnson property, which we brought to council earlier this summer, but this is the Roller property. It's located at 20042 Kenwood. This is a single-family, owner-occupied single-family home. It sits on a lot just under 10,000 square feet. It's kind of unusual. In fact, when I was looking at this map again today, I had to check there. This is all part of the old Antlers plat. It's probably a 100-year-old plat, and there's actually a street right-of-way where the driveway comes through, and then you can see on this map there were alleys, and this, again, nothing developed the way this was originally platted 100 years, or not real close to anyway. So, but it's been a home that's been owner-occupied for quite a while. Our appraisal came in at $205,000 on this one. Part of the, again, another statutory requirement under the relocation requirements is that Wilson Development Services had to find a comparable replacement, or did a comparable replacement housing analysis to determine not only are they entitled to market value, but when they're being displaced, you have to do an analysis to see if the amount of the appraisal or their property is worth, they can find comparable replacement housing for. The idea being you can't purchase somebody's property and then they're not in this community or in this market able to find comparable housing. So that brought the price up to $229,000 to find not only their market value, but then what was also available and comparable in the market. This one is the other one that we have in here that has a rent-back provision. In this case, it's a rent-back period of 6 months at no cost to the owners. Similar relocation agreement, or similar, rent-back agreement included and attached to the purchase agreement is prepared by the city attorney, or reviewed by the city attorney, and it has some of the same provisions as the other one did. This property owner also will be eligible for once, and just as the Carney Johnson or any of these occupied properties are, either a tenant or an owner are eligible for relocation and moving cost reimbursements under the Uniform Relocation Act. So staff's recommendation on this one is to for the purchase price of $229,000 and then the $229,900 and no rent back agreement, or no past due rent agreement, but a no cost lease back agreement till for 6 months. And then they, again, once they do move, they will be entitled to relocation and moving expenses reimbursement. And I will point out, again, Wilson has done a nice job in trying to work with all of these property owners and be flexible, but still be, cognizant of the fact that we're spending, public dollars on these acquisitions, so we have to keep everything within reason and what's supportable and justifiable. So I've been pleased with the activity that we've had in other areas. It was not going to be possible for the city to deal with all these properties in the shorter time frame that Wilson has been able to do it.
Item number 10 through 13 were approved by the Lakeville City Council. Well, those are the highlighted items presented to the City Council at their October 5th, 2015 meeting. If you have any questions or comments regarding these agenda items, please feel free to call City Hall. The number is 952-985-4400. Thanks for watching this edition of Lakeville City Council Wrap-Up. The curtain is going up for this year's season at the Lakeville Area Performing Arts Center. And this year, there's something for everyone. From a wide array of musical stylings to holiday seasonal performances, the Lakeville Area Performing Arts Center offers the finest in regional entertainment. Reserve seating for all performances. To find program descriptions and buy tickets online, visit our website at lakevilleareaartcenter.com.